We have as our guest right now from Newsmax New York, Bernard Kerik, the CEO of the Kerik Group and the former New York Police Commissioner. Bernie, it is great to have you here on America's Forum. Now, this story is developing. We don't have a lot of information about it, but you have gone through the experience of 9/11. From your law enforcement perspective, what is the checklist that the people may be going through right now, authorities may be going through right now at the Canadian Parliament?
The suspect being on the loose is going to be a major problem. I understand there were several shots fired. We can't determine at this point where those shots came from, who shot, whether it was the government or the suspect. They're going to be looking for this guy. They're going to be looking for any associates, accomplices, and they're going to have to go from this point forward in a very strategic investigative capacity to figure out whether this guy is involved in terrorism, whether it's a lone attack or what the case may be.
How is the U.S. responding in light of this recent event?
Well, I think, look, everybody, especially over the last 6 months or so, has had this increased height of alarm and concern based on the threats from ISIS and ISIL and all these other groups abroad. This may be connected in some way. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Canada increased their alert status
They did.
Quietly over the last week or so. So they may have had some intelligence that we don't know about, or at least we don't know about publicly.
Bernie, as you were speaking, we took a look, a live shot provided to us from the Canadian Parliament. Again, this story is developing. We're trying to get a handle on it. As we go back to the live shot now, it is worth recalling the attack of what, 1 day ago or maybe 36 hours ago, a hit and run incident, or actually using a car as a weapon against 2 Canadian soldiers. The context of these events, and while we do not know what happened at the Canadian Parliament today, we cannot call it a terror attack. Now authorities in Canada are saying the assailant in that vehicle targeting the soldiers, they believe he may have been radicalized. What does that tell you about what our stance as Americans should be in terms of vigilance and perhaps dispatching this scourge of what is politically correct, the political correctness that seems to paralyze us, curiously, even as we're dealing with these events?
JD, the problem here is, people are going to watch this broadcast and they're going to act shocked. They're going to be surprised. This should surprise no one. If these are radical extremists, radical Muslim extremists, this should surprise no one. They've talked about doing this for years. We are finding more homegrown, internal-born, radicalized, extremists coming to light as of recent. We had these 3 girls right here in the United States that were on the way to Syria. None of this should surprise anyone. I mean, they've been telling us for years they're coming. And I have to believe there are a number of them here in Canada, in Australia, in countries, Western countries, countries that live in a democracy, that live in freedom. These groups have been talking about it for years, so no one should be surprised if that's the case. No one.
And as we look back 30 seconds, Bernie, is this a failing across the board, a failure to understand what could happen again post 9/11? Have we come up with a case of amnesia?
I think it's something we just have to stay on top of. And the further we get away from 9/11, people have sort of forgot about it. Listen to what they're doing in Iraq, in Syria, in other places. They're going to be doing it here if we don't fight them there and have victory.
Bernard Kerik, we appreciate your insights and analysis of this developing story. Thank you very much for checking in from Newsmax New York. Now, don't go away. Dick Morris joins us when we come back.